Hey,
Hi.
David.
Hi.
I know you've done a lot of inspiring projects
Mm-hmm.
in the last few months or years, but I wonder a little bit how you started moving from immersive theater into also the more social environmental impact space.
I think I moved where the opportunities were, and then those opportunities were able to be shaped by values. I mean, because storytelling is, a lot of it is about the sharing of values, and stories are a kind of way of rethinking the world. There's the opportunity for the transformation through a story, especially if it's not a story you merely hear, but a story you get to live. And if you get to live the story, then you embody the elements of the values and the narrative elements so that actually there is hopefully, potentially, a transformation. So,
That's beautiful. So opportunities kind of came up for you, and then with your values that you hold, you kind of moved into that
right.
space a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's two projects in particular. So one is a project in China, which is the China Eden Project, which came to me as already a project which had themes of water scarcity, a world that has not conserved water, and a world that has conserved water. So a sort of like future we want and future we don't want. And this was more of a sort of geographical, visualization of futures. What they asked me to do is consider how could I get an audience to be engaged through this, both learning and perhaps playing. So I've designed a narrative that moves the audience through ultimately three spaces. So it becomes a challenge to create the world you want.
Wow.
And in that, there's a one-day version of it, and there's a three-day version of it. And the location design by the landscape architects and the sort of museum designers is excellent. But what they haven't designed for is how the audience, is shaped through the piece.
And what's the impact in that project particular that you hope to have, or how do you want to change, enlighten people?
Well, it's an educational center. It's also a research center. So it has that element to it. But it's also, they're hoping to be a tourist destination and ultimately have entertaining elements to it, storytelling and games for different ages. So building a narrative that is both interactive for younger audiences and for older. This is the same company that had me come in and do a project in Ocean Flower Island, which was also environmental impact. And that was a project where an ancient village was discovered, and it turned out that it had been abandoned by humans, and now the audience or the theme park visitors had to come and reactivate the world by fixing what the other humans had left.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
Yeah. The most recent project is in Iraq, where we're very much interested in creating an alternate reality game in Iraq where young people could learn through the game, get interested because it was a game, to become more aware of climate change. So it turned out that their goal was limited and needed to expand because the greater challenge was not building awareness, but developing motivation. Because, I mean, as you know, in Iraq there was a sense of these things can't get solved. So introducing to them to projects there were interesting solutions, where the marshes of Iraq had been restored, at least in part, after the destruction of Saddam Hussein. So to the degree that motivation could be sparked by real events, where change could be seen as possible, we then sort of set about developing projects in 6 cities where we would develop not alternate reality games, but urban adventure games, where they could work socially, either with their classes or with friends, where it could be something that was more engaging and less uncertain for the players. The alternate reality game, the pilot that we did, had some challenges for some parts of the population. So the new game, as it rolls out in October, so it's coming, will lead to a festival, and the festival will lead to a hackathon in which the participants, so we're hoping to develop awareness, build motivation, get out the word about the possibilities of this hackathon, where we hope young people will in some ways compete, but also learn how they might engage. So we're actually using the game and the festival to bring people together on the subject, and then get them to sort of compete and participate in both learning and competition for how they might impact even younger students.
Wow. So it's quite amazing to hear, on the one hand, the combination of, educational opportunities and working with the elements already there, like the theme parks or opportunities, but then also to look at, okay, what's the messages we want to bring across? How can we create hope and motivation to become an actor of change, and even then creating opportunities for people to engage and take action. So that's quite nice to see how also experienced designers can have a influence on all these different levels and kind of guide people on their journey towards action with different steps. So that's
right. I mean, at the heart of experience design is getting people to not be passive and just listening or watching a story. In experience design or in role play or in immersive theater, the audience has to be invited to step out of their passivity into action. And once their bodies are in motion, once their interactions with each other are in motion, it almost becomes in their own mind that this is something going on. You're asking them to step into a narrative, and it's hard for them to ever step out of it if they found it meaningful. So embedding the meaning in the experience and making the experience both something that catches their attention, gets them to get involved, and then even perhaps co-create within it. I mean, the workshop in Iraq is a perfect example of it, because I've brought to them tools, but they're actually creating it. Because far be it for me to sort of come in, from the US and say, here's what you might do, but I can say, here are tools that you might make your own projects with. And when they have questions about how could you do this, and from their own imagination or co-creation, I can support them, but they're actually making it. So the design of experience design gets them to be not just participant, but author.
Yeah, so lift them up.
Right.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks. And what is the one element a future world would have for you?
A future world has
If you think about, or in the future, if you take it into the future and think about what is one thing that you would love to see in 30 years? You said so beautifully to me yesterday, seeing us sitting together in a circle here in the college, you were wondering about what we are going to be like in 30 years and what our drivers and purpose will be.
Yeah, that is very much in my mind, which is that people who are currently interested in only personal development or only social development or only entertainment and creative practice might actually deepen that personal development, deepen that artistry, if they link that creativity to the deeper purposes of the emerging society that they are needed within.
Powerful.